Hello, and welcome to the Curious Wanderer Bible Study. Today we're going to be continuing in Genesis 9 and 10. Um, it's very interesting what happens here. And we stumble across another axiom. But before we talk about that, let's just sort of recap where we are. God has told Noah to build an ark. Noah has built the ark. The flood has come. Noah survived the flood because he followed exactly what God asked him to do. And that's where we left off. So, chapter 9 begins. I'm going to be reading from the NIV. Chapter 9 begins with Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth, and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, now I give you everything. So Noah and his sons' wives, and his wife all followed God's plan, and now they're reaping a reward, which is like, great, excellent. We have a winner. Um, but, and it seems like, great. God had a plan, Noah followed the plan, and now we're done. Story ends. But the story never ends. It keeps going, right? Something else is going to happen here. So in verse 4, we see the first new rule that God gives us. So he says, in continuing, this is God speaking, but you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal and from each human being too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it. So, a rule, two rules actually sitting here. One, you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it, because lifeblood is precious to God. And if a person is killed, there will be an accounting for it. Whether it's an animal or a person, they shall forfeit their lives, is what we hear here. So, good news, they survived the flood and God's blessing them, but there's a stipulation. It's not just a free for all. Things are not going to be the way it was before. We don't hear a ton about it, but we do hear it was a very violent time. The Nephilim were walking around. People were just treating each other horribly. And God's like, okay, we're restarting here. Great. But we're not going to go down that path again. We're going to put boundaries on it. And then God says to Noah and his sons, and starting in verse 8, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you and with every living creature that was with you, etc., that he is going to have a covenant with everybody and every living creature, all those that came out of the ark, every living creature on earth. Verse 11, I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And he has a sign for us. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature, a covenant for all the generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood and destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on the earth. So we've ended the flood, and God has said he's never going to do it again. He promises us and gives us a mark for the promise. He says it will remind him. Now, it's an interesting question how that God needs reminding, but perhaps it's more to remind us that God knows and will not do it again. An interesting thing that's happening here, though, is that God has a next stage, right? And this happens with all of us. We make it through one trial, and it's great, and we feel better, or we celebrate. but there's going to be a next one. And we've made it through one here, and we're not going to have to go through a flood again like that. But there will be other trials, and there are new rules. Do not shed blood, and do not eat blood from an animal. So we see a new axiom of sorts. I'm not sure if it's really an axiom or a corollary. I got to figure that out as a mathematician. A corollary is something that follows quickly from axioms. So probably this isn't a corollary if I'm having to think hard. But the axiom then is, last one was God needs us for his plan. The next one is God never stops needing us. He needs us once. And if we do it, he needs us again. And if we mess up and don't, he still needs us again. He will continue to need us. And as he pointed out to Noah and his sons, he needs them to follow his rules and to be fruitful and multiply. He needs us. He needs those three people to repopulate the earth. So there is a continuing plan. And this shows us for ourselves. God has a plan, and he has a continuing plan for us. We go on, so starting in verse 18 through the rest of chapter 9 and into chapter 10, we hear about the sons of Noah and their descendants. And it's a little dry for me to read this. I'm not going to read through all of it. But talking about the descendants of Noah and the three sons, so his three sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Those were the fathers of all the men that came afterwards, all the humans that came afterwards. And so it's very interesting to see, if you think about who wrote this. So Moses wrote this through God. At the time Moses lived, which would have been during the Exodus. And what would be paramount on the Jewish people at the time's mind is the people of Canaan. And because that's the land that they conquered, and God told them to conquer it. And this story of Noah, at the end of the story, we see something interesting happen here. Noah, after he comes out of the ark with his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan, we hear. In verse 19, we pick up, these were the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Verse 20, Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent, naked. Continuing, Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. So Ham saw Noah naked. Continuing, but Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders, and then walked backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so they would not see their naked father. So, interesting here. So, Noah's son, Ham, saw him naked, and rather than doing anything particularly helpful in the situation, he went out and it seems like he just sort of was like, hey, take a look at dad. Which doesn't seem like a large transgression, but nakedness was very much forbidden in the time of this Jewish time. And so it was very much a strong insult, and to make levity of it would have been really bad. So starting in verse 24, we see that when Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, Ham, he said, cursed be Canaan, not Ham, but Canaan, the son of Ham. So cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers. He also said, praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth. So it's a very strange interlude here, or a difficult one to parse through for me. We notice that Canaan is cursed not by God, by the way, but Noah. Noah curses Canaan for the transgression of his father. Canaan did nothing here. But we see part of the culture that the sins of the family go down through the generations, and we see that play out psychologically as well. These tend to carry sins of the family carry on through generations. But it's very interesting to see how this sits in the history around Moses' time. What this does for Moses and for God writing to the people of the of the Jewish people at the time of Moses is connecting the flood way back in history to what would have been modern time for them, their takeover of Canaan and reclaiming of their land that God had promised them. So this, to my mind, serves as a beautiful connection from the past to the present, at least the present for the people reading this or hearing this for the first time, of Israel. And it helps explain how the people of Canaan came to be where they were at, sort of wrapping full circle around what was going on at that time for the Israelites. So that's the end of chapter 9. And chapter 10 continues with the table of nations, the sons of Japheth, the sons of Ham, the sons of Canaan, and how they fit into the world. And again, that provides context. Remember a while ago talking about the axioms that there's always, every communication requires perspective. And so this accounting of the sons of Noah and their descendants, how they became the nations of the world, provides context and perspective for the story about how it fits into the wider world. So we narrowed down our focus on to Noah and his family, and then we've brought it back out to the wider focus. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed, and see you next time.